The Bears have officially been eliminated from the playoffs, so we're going to examine how we got here, what big decisions are coming, and why Bears fans should have hope for the future today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100.
Joe, happy Thursday. We do need to pour one out, though. No Thursday Night Football tonight.
Yeah. Hate it.
We are going to have to get our fill elsewhere for football, but we do get Saturday football, so I guess that's a plus. But no Monday Night Football either. So our palate is pretty lean. We're going to get our fill to start by talking about the Chicago Bears here today, though.
Yes, it's their turn for the stuff that we do here. If you don't make the playoffs, we give you an entire episode. We talk about what went wrong, what big decisions are coming, and then the Levy Grail, why you should be hopeful for the future. And so we'll start this conversation with the Chicago Bears and talk about how we got here. And Kyle Crabbs, I would say they started slow. 0-4 into 2-7 into 3-8. And that's a tough hole to climb out of, right? That's a difficult situation, especially when through that you had your starting quarterback get injured. You want to be a run-heavy team, and your backs, Herbert, Foreman, Johnson, all missed time within there. And I think this was a team that lived and died with turnovers. We talked about this with the Broncos. It's the same deal with the Chicago Bears. When they had one or fewer turnovers, they're 6-1. When they had two or more turnovers, they're 1-8. In the one game that they won with two turnovers, the Vikings doubled them up and had 4 turnovers, right? So this was a team that games had to kind of go a certain way for them to be able to have the success that they wanted to. And I think the early hole, the backfield injuries on offense certainly were some of the leading factors in my mind as to the Bears not reaching the postseason this year.
Well, and just on that turnover point, the team had 18 turnovers in the first 9 weeks of the season.
It's tough.
Offensively.
Yeah.
And defensively in that same stretch, they had 5, 8, 9. So I'm not a math guy, but that's pretty stark. And then this turnaround starts, and the defense has 4 turnovers, 4 turnovers, 3 turnovers, 3 turnovers, no turnovers, but still beats the Cardinals, and then 4 turnovers against the Falcons.
Yeah.
So that'll happen. And I think you look at the Bears this offseason with the big time investments that were made in Tremaine Edmunds and TJ Edwards at linebacker, the interior defensive lineman that they drafted, the trade deadline acquisition of Montez Sweat. And you can kind of see why this thing has gelled as this season has gone along. And you certainly feel optimistic about what the continued path for this group would look like if they're given the opportunity to do so. And in Chicago now climbing up to 7-9 with a chance to win an 8th game. They're, as you said, 4-1 in their last 5 games. It's a strong finish. And they really needed this to kind of, I think, set the path towards a third year for this regime without interruptions with Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles. And whether Luke Getsy is a part of that or not, I think is probably the biggest coaching staff decision we'll talk about for them as far as key decisions moving forward. But you just knew that many new pieces with a team that was coming off of a foundational year, there was going to be continued growing pains as a result of that. I think the first half of the season really manifested that for Chicago, unfortunately, because there's games in here that you certainly wish you had back. The Broncos game, you don't think you regret outgaining the Broncos by more than 100 yards of offense, and still 160 yards of offense, but still losing the game by 3 points with how that Broncos team was playing.
Mm-hmm.
That Minnesota game that you lost by 6 points, where you held them to 220 yards of offense but still lost. These are early game losses that they took that you look at it now, they might be the difference in you making the playoffs or not. The collapse against Detroit the first time you played them.
Yeah.
You had them against the ropes. And you Denny Greened him. You let him off the hook. Right? So some narrow misses for Chicago this year. Early season struggles, and then that loss to Detroit. And they obviously got revenge when they came out of the bye and beat them by 2 touchdowns. But I think this is a tale of two halves of this season. And as you said, they just dug the hole too big to make the end of this season count with how strong they've been playing lately.
And I think offensively, this is still a team that is coming together. I know that Fields has kind of turned it on, and DJ Moore was unbelievable, 1,300 yards already this season. But I still look at this offense, and I feel like we need more playmakers in the passing game. Like we mentioned, DJ Moore, 1,300 yards. Cole Kmet with a strong season, over 600, but then that's it. Like Darnell Mooney, 414 yards. Like you kind of need more in terms of these offensive playmakers. And I think simultaneously, your offensive line is still coming together. And you had some injuries at left tackle, right? Larry Borum had to play 40% of the snaps this year. That's a downgrade from Braxton Jones. I think Nate Davis clearly still finding his way after being a fairly big free agent acquisition. Yeah, Jatir Carter winds up playing a ton at both guard spots, whether it was Cody Whitehair or Tevin Jenkins or Nate Davis, kind of missing some time. And then at right tackle, I think Darnell Wright was a bright spot, but he's still a rookie that gave up 50 pressures, which the next highest on your team was 28, right? So that's still a work in progress there. So this offensive line is still a work in progress, while you still kind of need more in terms of your weaponry to really be an explosive offense.
Well, and then you also have the element of Justin Fields and how he's played as well. And he's one of these quarterbacks in the light of, and I'll give a kind of a lexicon of different quarterbacks here. Russell Wilson's like this. Deshaun Watson's like this. Deshaun Watson, when he was arguably the best quarterback in football, was like this.
Mm-hmm.
There's quarterbacks that
Kyler
invite
Murray.
Pressure at times. They like to hold the ball. They want to make big plays happen. They're not necessarily the most consistent anticipatory throwers. And, that was an adjustment for Justin Fields, which you kind of had a sense was coming because of how the Ohio State offense was run, where that offense has a lot of option routes on longer developing routes down the field. So you have to let the play develop before you cut the ball loose. So Justin himself obviously likes to hold the ball and let things happen. And there's times where there's inconsistencies in how he sees the field and then gets off his spot. I think he's played probably the best month of football for his career. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
The past month?
Yeah.
So you like that. But I think that element with a maturing offensive line that's getting a feel for where is his drop landmark? How wide can I set the pocket? Where is he behind me? Is the ball out yet? I don't know. It compounds the protection element. And Justin, of course, is physically gifted enough to make a lot happen outside of that. But that doesn't make life easier for your offensive lineman either. And that's the element of sacks and pressure being a quarterback stat often as much as it is an offensive line stat.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And the last thing I'd say here in this opening conversation and how we got here was you just had so much youth and new on the defensive side of the football. If they're veterans, they're new veterans, right? Edwards, Edmunds, Ngakoue, Demarcus Walker. And then you kind of sprinkle that in with a bunch of young players in the back seven, right? I mean, you're Gordon and Brisker and Tyrique Stevenson and Johnson. Those are young players. A lot of your key players up front on the D line are rookies and young players. And I think the numbers that really speak to me that show the youth is the situational numbers. 29th in third down defense, 32nd in red zone defense, right? And I think that's kind of where some of that youth pops up. And I think it's great that they got all these reps this year. They're going to be so much better for it. But how we got here this year was leaning on so many young players on defense that situationally you weren't very secure.
think that's a good debrief on how Chicago ends up eliminated week 17, 7-9, chance to play spoiler with a divisional rival next week this weekend against Green Bay. So that's a fun opportunity. Obviously, the rivalry there is well documented, and I'm sure Chicago would love nothing more. But you have that opportunity, but unfortunately, it would not result in you climbing in the division standings high enough to make the postseason yourselves.
We're going to talk about the big decisions for the Bears here in just a moment, including at the quarterback position. So be sure to stick with us. But this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Around New Year, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we're already doing right. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. It's helpful for learning new positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the very best version of yourself. It's just not for people who've experienced major trauma. So if you've been thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist. And if you need to switch therapists at any time, you can do so for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Joe, I have a content idea, and I don't know that it's going to be applicable to Chicago, but if it were applicable to Chicago, I would have so much fun with this.
All right.
The content idea is teams that need a new head coach, and I don't think Chicago is going to go down that path. But if they were, us to put together like our deck or pitch for the head coaching vacancy for that team.
Okay. I like it.
And if you were to do it with Chicago, how much fun would you have with the levers that can be pulled, the cap space this team already has, the expiring contracts? And this is not to get into the Levy Guerrero stuff now, but just this team already has a significant amount of salary cap space, Joe.
Yeah, resources have been abounding in Chicago the last couple of years. Like you mentioned, cap space, $62 million entering the offseason. That's seventh most, and plenty of levers that we can pull. We can be well over $100 million in cap space if we want to be.
I got him there with 5 moves. With 4 moves. I got him there with 4 moves.
Restructure Sweat and Edmunds, and then cut Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair.
So I also restructured DJ Moore.
There you go.
So DJ Moore, Tremaine Edmunds, Montez Sweat restructured, Eddie Jackson cut.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Do whatever you want. You got all the money you need to do
That's $108 million in cap space.
There you go. Go sign all the players that you want to sign.
Let's talk about expiring contracts that they have. The big one's Jaylon Johnson.
Yeah.
Right? That's one that they held him at the deadline. I think they'll be glad that they did that based on how the last month or so has unfolded for the team. That is an outstanding young corner, 25 years old this upcoming season. Young centerpiece of a secondary is what he's capable of being.
Mm-hmm.
Other notables that they have, Yannick Ngakoue signed a 1-year deal to be their primary pass rusher. That has not worked out. I would not re-sign him.
Right.
This is me. You have Darnell Mooney, wide receiver, 4th-year veteran. Joe, you just outlined the lack of impact that he's had. I think if you can get him for a right dollar amount, would like to have him back. 400
yards. I mean,
right. Is you're not going to lose sleep if he walks.
Right.
Do I think he's a better player than that? Yeah, I do.
Of course. Yeah. But
a couple defensive linemen, Justin Jones, Rasheem Green, significant players for them. Robert Tonyan at tight end. Lucas Patrick, utility offensive lineman capable of playing a couple different spots. Dante Foreman at running back. These are the ones that stand out to me. You could take literally your pick of who you want back and bring them back. There's nothing restricting of any of these guys. Jaylon Johnson's probably going to be as much as any of the other 3 guys combined from a commitment perspective from financials.
You've had time with these players, at least 1 season. Bring back who you want to bring back. Guys who can be part of your solution, can be those centerpieces of your team, right, that you're willing to pay. And I think Jaylon Johnson certainly fits that criteria, but I think the rest are pretty nothing to sweat about. Bring them back if you want to. Don't if you don't want to. They have plenty of opportunity to replenish and restock if they want to in certain spots.
Right. So we mentioned Luke Getsy. You have any firm thoughts there?
Yeah, so it's probably this is the big decision, right? We kind of got through the easy part of this. The big decision is what to do with your offense, and that's both from the Luke Getsy piece of it and the Justin Fields piece of it, where you got to make a decision on that fifth-year option for Justin Fields. If you do pick that up, you're locked in for right at $22 million in 2025. And Luke Getsy, I mean, I feel like one of the biggest talking points to start the season was Luke Getsy and this offense and a lot of frustrations, and then seemed to stabilize a bit. But do you have convictions about him being the right offensive coordinator to move your operation forward? And I think a lot of that stems from whether or not you believe Justin Fields should continue as your quarterback, or if you should use the number 1 overall pick on your choice of quarterbacks that you've clinched. You have it.
You want to know what my favorite trivia fact about Luke Getsy is? And this is relevant to nobody other than me.
Okay.
My college experience, I went to Penn State with the exception of one semester. I went to Indiana University, Pennsylvania, fall semester of 2011. Aging myself here. You know who the offensive coordinator was at Indiana University, Pennsylvania?
Was it Luke Getsy?
It was Luke Getsy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Narrow miss there.
Yeah.
With
Luke
Getsy.
Yeah. Glad we know
that. He made the jump to the NFL as a quality control coach with the Packers in 2014. He was first offensive coordinator with Mississippi State for one season in 2018, then back with the Packers quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator 2020, 2021, and then the offensive coordinator in Chicago 2022 and 2023.
So he was the QB coach for Aaron Rodgers MVP years, and so
that's how you get an OC job, right? Like
that's all it takes, man.
Look, I watched Joe Philbin get a head coaching job out of being Aaron Rodgers' assistant, de facto offensive coordinator, but not a play caller.
I mean, we've seen this, the Adam Gases, the Josh McDaniels, like it's part of the deal
about hiring people.
The Charlie Weisses, you know what I mean?
So can we have the Getsy conversation without having the Fields conversation at the same time? Or do we have to have the conversations in tandem? I think you probably do, right?
I think you got to have an identity for what you want your offense to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you have such a unique chance here to pick and stick with Justin Fields, to pick Caleb Williams at number 1, to pick Drake May at number 1, who are opposite players. Like, what do you want to be on offense? That's what you have to ask yourself.
Right. I think there also has been some growing pains in each of the first 2 seasons with Chicago and their identity that they've had with Getsy, where remember when Getsy first came in 2022 and it took him forever to kind of figure out, hey, we got a quarterback that can run the ball. Let's run quarterback run game and make that be the really profound part of our offense last year. And they spend the offense and they bring in DJ Moore and they kind of revamp the offensive line and they completely undid all of that to try to make it a drop back passing game again. And it didn't work again. So I think that's the thing for me when I reflect on Luke Getsy and the offense in Chicago the last 2 years. That's the hardest thing for me is you didn't use the offseason this year to build upon what you found last year. You tried to totally undo it and be something different. And with a developing quarterback, it didn't work. So I think whether you continue with Justin Fields or if you make a different decision at quarterback, I feel like the answer is the same either way for me personally. And it's you went from year 1 to year 2 and you didn't sustain where your growth was offensively. So if you have the same quarterback who's still a developing player, do I want you working with him? Maybe not. If you make a different decision, I definitely don't want you starting back from square one all over again because it takes you a while to feel out how to call your offense for the players that you have in season.
So it sounds like you've seen enough of Luke Getsy through 2 seasons that you're like, I want a new direction for my offense because you don't believe in him. Totally reasonable position to take. which then gets us to the quarterback decision that they have to make. It's great that they have this leverage, and that'll be part of the Levy Grail, but you got to decide, because if you draft the quarterback number 1 overall, you're saying that Justin Fields is not part of the deal here.
Right.
Oh, by the way, you have number 10 as well, currently.
And I think that's not a small deal for the decision for Chicago. Because if the decision is, well, you're going to draft the quarterback, what is the opportunity cost? Well, the opportunity cost, I think, is reduced because of the assets that you would get for Justin Fields. And then in addition, you still have the 10th overall pick, which is organically your own pick right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're missing out completely on an opportunity to invest into your roster.
They have options, and that is part of what makes it exciting for the Chicago Bears. And we're going to talk about all of that here in just a moment. So be sure to stick with us. But folks, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to be certain that you have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats right now and might not have the time or resources to hire. Well, thankfully with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. And they even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Floor is yours.
Fight on, my men. I am hurt, but I am not slain. I'll lay me down and bleed a while, and then I'll rise and fight again. Kyle, very fitting, the Levy Grail. Marv Levy makes his home in Chicago, Illinois.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an even better nugget than the Getsy nugget.
There you go. So, I don't know how much the Chicagoland people revere Marv Levy or not. I have no idea, but that's where he lives. So of course,
who's like because you're Charlotte, but you're also Western New York native.
Yeah.
Who's like the Western New York like alumni? Not like he played his pro football there, but he's from there.
We've got Wolf Blitzer. Wolf Blitzer's a good one.
Okay. Are there any
Summer Sanders, the swimmer?
Football people?
Football people. Man, I'm sure people are yelling at me right now. Daquan Jones is from Western New York. There it is.
Okay, there you go.
Daquan Jones,
there
Williamsburg. I'm sure there's more, man. They're escaping me right now.
It's just like you think about the hotbeds of like high school and prep football. You think about California.
It's not Western New York.
Right. It's a little bit more off the beaten path. Yeah.
We got Brian Daboll. He's a native. And
he
Tom
is.
Telesco. Yeah, those are natives. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you've got names that are household names.
Nick Sirianni. Let's go. Rob Gronkowski. They're coming to me now, Kyle Crabbs. Gronk's a Buffalo. Yeah, man.
Really is.
Yeah, he grew up a Bills fan. Yeah, and then he went to the Patriots and decided
to
elbow drop Trey White. And you know what I mean? We weren't cool anymore.
Amherst, New York. That's right.
That's right, brother. And you've been to Amherst. The hotel we stayed at in Buffalo was in Amherst.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah. He was actually born almost 1 month to the day after me.
Wow. We're in that point of our lives where we're older than all the players.
Yeah, for the most part.
Not many, man. Not many out there that I'm not older than. So
that's what was fun about Tom, right? It's like you grew up watching Tom, and Tom kept playing. You're like,
I don't really use.
I'm not old yet. He's still going. He's still ticking.
I don't use words like fun and Tom in the same sentence. So
come on, the distance makes the heart grow fonder.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Hasn't. Nope. I didn't enjoy him in Tampa Bay.
You didn't enjoy him tarnishing Belichick's legacy?
No, man.
All right. Bears fans.
His cats on Instagram annoy me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I got problems.
Bears fans have had enough. They said, you're here to talk about Chicago.
Well, maybe they can relish in knowing that their hate for Aaron Rodgers, it's
the same as your hate for Tom Brady.
Right. But don't try me. Mine's worse than yours. All right. Like,
right.
Yeah.
The Bears, as we said at the top of segment 2, have all of the assets. So if you want to know a reason to be, if you were, let me put it this way. If the Bears were a vacancy, how high up the list of attractive vacancies would it be for you?
Man, I'd want it. Are you kidding me?
It would be the job I would want.
Yeah, not only are you getting 2 top 10 picks, all the cap space, a decent nucleus of young talent, but you are in a great division. I like
a lot of transition in that.
Yeah.
division.
Yeah. I respect the heck out of what's going on with the Detroit Lions. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, is that Mount Everest to top them? You know what I mean?
And they have a long-term quarterback discussion with Jared Goff that,
they're going to lose Ben Johnson.
Right.
The defense isn't that good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Chicago is an awesome opportunity. Now, they don't have a second-round pick for courtesy of the Montez Sweat.
But they do have Montez Sweat, they would remind you.
They do have Montez Sweat.
Pro Bowler Montez Sweat.
First overall pick, 10th overall pick, third round pick at 76, their own fourth at 111. They also have the Eagles' fourth and their own fifth. So they don't have a 6 or a 7, but like, poo-poo on you, I don't care. Like, you have 2 top 10 picks. You have another 3 that are fringe top 125 selections. You still have meaningful draft capital. And whether you choose to use the first overall pick on a quarterback, you would then trade Justin Fields, and you're probably getting at worst a second-round pick and change, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I would think so.
Or conversely, if you keep Fields and you trade out of 1,
yeah, you're getting a lot.
You're getting probably 3 first-round picks again.
Mm-hmm.
So
stick and pick Harrison Jr., roll with Fields.
Yeah, the world is your oyster. You can do anything. Yeah. Like, how creative can you get? Because I think the limits of what Chicago can do with this offseason are really only limited by how creative they can think and how galaxy brain they can approach the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, a late season surge into all the draft capital. I mean, I know, again, volume of picks not there, but they can do what they want here. And volume of cap space with a fair amount of talent already secured, right? With DJ Moore, what Cole Kmet gave you. You do have offensive line talent that's locked up in Wright, Jones, and Jenkins. Montez Sweat. They're surely going to bring back Jaylon Johnson. Tyrique Stevenson had a great rookie year. Kyler Gordon in the slot. Jaquan Brisker. You got those linebackers that you paid. Like, you got stuff here. You're not like a nothing team. So
the other thing they have is time. And maybe not like Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus time, but you're on the clock with the first overall pick. You can, in tandem, conduct your own quarterback evaluations versus your own quarterback, while simultaneously making the pick available and not have to make a decision until the end of April. Like, you have a very long amount of time and no pressure to make that decision before you're ready.
Yeah, you're scouting these quarterbacks, whatever ones you think should be in that conversation. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Daniels, and you're ranking them against Justin Fields. And you got a really good look at Justin Fields over the last couple of years to kind of know exactly what he is. And that's part of your process. And that's a good place to be. And I feel like the momentum is with Fields, right? You didn't DJ Moore come out and call him and all that, and it feels like the fans are behind him. So they have options.
So, and I've been in these shoes as a fan of a team that picked a quarterback high, and the early returns weren't there. And I've lived in those shoes where you've had to have conversations about trading and acquiring a veteran quarterback or drafting another quarterback all over again. And do you pull the plug, or do you take what you know about the player and take what your vision was for the player and really lean into it? It can work either way.
Yeah.
And, I know the adage that was given us by Jordan Palmer was teams fail quarterbacks more than quarterbacks fail teams. And there's growth for Justin Fields that can happen. But I certainly think you can reflect on the environment that he's been in and say that he hasn't been given the best opportunity to be successful. So make your decision. That's fine. Either way. Like, I know what I would personally do. But it's you have the opportunity, no matter what decision you make, to make that decision right by how you approach it.
So I hear Sean McVay talk a lot about being committed to a vision. Figure out what that vision is and commit to it. That's what it comes down to. And if Justin Fields is that part of that, figure out the best way to make Justin Fields successful. If you pick a Caleb Williams or whatever you're going to do, have a vision to make that guy as successful as possible and stick with it.
Yep. So Chicago, y'all have all the this was the easiest Levy Grail we've done aside of probably Cincinnati.
Right.
You have so much at your disposal to build upon this year. The challenge is build upon it, because that's not what happened from last year into this year, right?
Kind of went sideways.
Too many new pieces on defense, so we had to go back to square one in that regard. And the offense, we acquired DJ Moore, but we kind of shunned a lot of what we did at the end of the year last year. So we kind of had to start back from square one all over again this year. And it cost you the playoffs, for being honest.
Yeah.
So build upon this year, use it as a foundational year. And you have the opportunity from there to really make something great and fun happen. That is going to do it for us here on this episode of Locked on NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. Appreciate you guys for checking out the show. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here.